your hand up. You do, maybe chat's maybe not available. Yeah, you should be able to hear me. Just drop it in the chat if you can hear me or not, that would be great. Cool, you can hear me. I got the message in school. I hope I'm in the right meeting here though. I had over 60 people registered for this. Yeah, you can't use any of the features. It's probably just let's see here. It's probably something to do with this being a teamed webinar. You were early though, which was cool. We start in just a couple of minutes after the hour. Let people arrive. Have to remember everything because I'm streaming this out onto YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and running it as a Teams meeting. So it's like 2 for 1 more as well. Ian, all right, let's stop the timer. Let's see if I can get my slides up, and I'll hit present. I'm using Canva presentations for this, guys. Okay, so some of you might be in the school group already. I think that when you register onto the webinar, you can kind of go into the school group, which is that will kind of, it'll lead you through some of the power audience, what we're going to be talking about here today. But I'm also obviously got a little bit of a questions and answers session as well. And this, if there's any questions, we've got time at the end for this. I'm hoping it's only going to be lasted about 30 minutes. So yeah, we'll just get into it. The whole point of today's presentation, I call it a demonstration of power. We've got over 60 people registered for this. We've got a lot of people in the Teams meeting today. As I say, thanks for coming along. But big question for you. Who is a famous rock star? And my company's IT Rockstars, but who is a famous rock star that you might know of? And when someone mentions their name, you know exactly who it is. Everybody knows who it is because they're famous for the music. They're famous for what they do. Well, I'm hoping to do the same for your IT business. So when a local business owner mentions your name or your company name, everyone in the local business network, in your sort of local community, knows exactly who you are. That's the whole purpose of what I'm going to show you here today. And as a result of that, you're going to get more sales meetings in the diary, more appointments, and people are just going to know you. You're going to have the ability to sell more IT services. That's the whole point of this. So a little story here, Mozart. This is the rock star of the 17th century. I'm not entirely sure why I used Mozart, but he lived in Austria, 17th century, and he was like a child genius at the time. And everyone even now knows the name Mozart. He knows he's like a piano player, famous composer. Didn't obviously have the RGB keyboard at the time. So a little story about Mozart though. He wasn't always famous, and maybe the same is true for your IT business. Maybe you have an amazing skill set like Mozart had, and your team have got an amazing skill set, but you feel as though not everybody knows about it locally, and they really should. So basically Mozart was taken on a tour. His dad exploited him. He took him around Europe, around aristocrats, royal family around Europe, and that's how he became famous. So we're going to take your IT business on a digital tour. in 2026. That is the whole purpose of this. So let's paint a little bit of a picture in regards to the marketing landscape right now. You might have a great website. You might be posting out onto LinkedIn and doing blog posts on a regular basis. You might have social media posts going out. You might have a lead magnet integrated onto your website, something a little bit more advanced, but you're still not seeing sort of the traction when it comes to the phone ringing and people wanting to book time in your diary to talk about their IT needs. I know this problem because I experienced this problem back in 2016. IT Rockstars, my company, it used to be an MSP, and that was the biggest problem I had. And I did it for 6 months. I used to work for an MSP, and then I started my own MSP, and I was doing sales at the time. But the biggest problem I had was actually getting in front of businesses that were looking for IT support and IT services or unhappy with their current provider. It was really difficult. I was fine once I was in front of them, but it was actually just finding them in the first place. So that's what I've been doing for the last 8 years now, I think, or no, sorry, 9 years, I think. Yeah, 2016, my math's bad. we're on 8 years. But doing it for 8 years, done a lot of things: LinkedIn automation, cold email, cold calling, direct mail, done it all. And it's becoming more difficult because of things like AI, and people's attention is like diminishing in value. It's like people are on their phones, they're on stories or TikToks. It's really difficult to get people's attention now in marketing. So a lot of the old techniques of marketing are now out the window. There are some basics, obviously, you do need to have, but what's actually going to move the needle in the future? What is the big thing? Well, the last 8 years, what I've come to realize, and this is a question that I've got for you, all of the clients that you've got right now, how have you gotten those clients? That's a question that I always ask. And 99% of the time, the answer is usually through someone they already know, word of mouth, a referral, a relationship. But it's usually someone they already know. There are obviously the outliers where you maybe get some through a marketing, but they are few and far between. And speaking from, IT Rockstars is a marketing company for MSPs, and I'm telling you here today, it's like actually most of your clients have probably come from relationships. It's a stark reality. It's one that I've figured out in the last 2 years of doing this. So if you look at this logically, if most of your clients have come from existing relationships, what you really need to do to grow your business is actually just form more relationships at scale. But how do you leverage all of the digital tools that we've got to do that? How do you create more business relationships that lead to a conversation, that lead to an introductory meeting, an IT sales appointment in the diary? Well, the only way you can really do it, and it's what I'm doing right now, you guys and girls, is through a webinar. It's the only form of marketing that's out there that allows you to build a relationship. It allows you to build a little bit of rapport. And one of the things with this, if you're not as stupid as me, you'd have like the chat so that we can interact. For some reason, I've disabled the chat in this Teams Meet webinar. But it allows you to build that relationship. It just allows you to have that initial spark with your marketplace and your prospects. This is the REAP formula you can see on the screen here. And these are some of the other benefits. So the ease for educate. You guys as MSPs, there's so many different topics. You've got AI, you've got cybersecurity, compliance, managed IT services, IT support, backup, VoIP, you name it. There's just like the list is endless. But in a webinar, you get to educate your prospects on what you lead with, okay? You can't really do that through any other form of marketing. You don't have 20 or 30 minutes of their attention if someone's downloading a PDF. It just doesn't work off the website. Then you also get to entertain. I told you a little story about Mozart, but there's much better ways to entertain. I will go into one of them a little bit on a later slide. And again, that just helps build that relationship. And then finally, you get to present your offer. Obviously, I'm going to have an offer at the end of this webinar, and it's like a foot in the door. It's a Trojan horse. It's not going to be like buy my managed IT services. You don't have to have anything like that. It's literally just present what you do, and if you want to continue the conversation. So that's why I love webinars. I've been doing them for about 2 years. There are some questions that are potentially forming in your head right now about them. Some of the big objections that I hear when it comes to webinars. These are a few of them on the screen. I'll list out some more as well. So you might have tried them in the past. You can't get anyone to register. That's like always a really difficult one. You maybe don't know what to sell on a webinar. Maybe you've got a fear of presenting, or maybe it's something else. There is quite a large list. These are the top 3 that I see. The 4th one's probably attendance. I left that one out because we've actually got a lot of people on the call here today, which is amazing. We've got 18 people in the room. So there was 60 people that registered onto this, and we got 18. So that sets you some expectations. If you do the math on that, if you want to have like a good webinar, like this is a great webinar. This is probably one of the better ones that I've done in the last 3 months. Having 18 people on the webinar is great. So you maybe have some of these things in your head, and we're going to cover them here. I'm going to give you some solutions so that in 2026, or even before Christmas and New Year, you can go and launch your own webinar. So the first one, and this is a learning that I took from one of our past clients, was getting people to register to the webinar. I worked with this company, F1 Tech, based in Canada. And this is, I think this is George on the screen, that's his name. He decided he wanted to do webinars all about cybersecurity. And that's like his speciality. That's what he sells. That's his core service. So we set the webinars up, and we were using ads to get people to register. So we were running ads on the Meta platform to get people to register onto the webinar. But we were paying like $40 per registrant, which is like a lot of money. I don't know what the conversion rate is in Canadian dollars, but certainly for my own webinars, when doing this for other clients, I'm getting anywhere from $4 to $10 per registrant. So I couldn't figure out why George was getting, it was like 4 times as much basically as our highest cost. And it wasn't until I started working with some of the other MSPs that we've dealt with more recently that we figured out a lot has to do with the topic of your webinar. This will drive attendance. So it will drive interest. And it seems like a really obvious thing, but if you have a topic that's hot in the marketplace, so like I've got the logo Copilot logo or AI, they are just going to generate more interest because they're in the zeitgeist about all the businesses out there. Whereas, unfortunately for us, something like cybersecurity, which we'd all love to speak about, we've been trying to sell that for the last 10 years or 15 years. I was doing this when I was in MSP sales back in 2013. I was talking about cybersecurity in events and webinars. So you really need to have a topic for your webinar that's on point, that's on trend. And that's what we do. That's just what I do at IT Rockstars. Every month I put together, it's almost like a webinar in a box, and it's the hottest trend. The one we did for last month was all about the AWS outage, how that affected local businesses, and how you can kind of sort of prepare for that so it doesn't affect you. So having that hot topic will drive the registrations, but it will also drive the attendance, okay? And that's probably one of the reasons that you're here today. I mentioned Copilot in the ad that I ran. You saw it and you went, okay, I'm gonna register onto this. I wanna find out more about how, of all things, how could Copilot grow my MSP? And that's why you're here today. So that's the first thing. So think about the topic and think about what hot topics maybe a customer's come to you with recently, and having a little bit think about how you could drive that in. The next thing, all of you guys here are pretty much here because of one thing, and you saw my ad on Meta. So a sad state of reality on all of social media platforms is that when you put a post out there organically, when you just put a post out that you're not paying for, the reach of it just won't go that far. So if you're going to create a LinkedIn event, I think I had one person register onto the LinkedIn event for this webinar. The reach just isn't there. Basically, the platforms want you to pay to get your message out there, your advertising out there. And it doesn't have to cost a lot. You can see here in the screen. Now, a lot of MSPs, when I say you got to advertise on Meta, they go, Scott, you're speaking, excuse my French, bullshit. I am not advertising on Meta. LinkedIn is where all the business owners are. That's where we do business. We don't want to be on Facebook. That is where my granny, my grandma is, or my granddad, my uncle. I'm not going to advertise there. Now, I know we've got one of our members in here, Brett. He has had some issues with getting the right people to his webinar through Meta. There's a few tactics involved. The first one is actually having a landing page that filters out a lot of the junk. The cool thing with Meta is that it's got basically AI in the background. So it has machine learning. So it works out over time who to show your ad to, who's most likely to click it, and then who's most likely to actually register onto the webinar. So the longer that you run these types of ads, and this is why you can see in the example here, I've called it evergreen, is because the lower the cost per lead goes. For this webinar, I pulled this report out today about, it was around about lunchtime my time, so about 6 hours ago. We've had 76 people actually register on, and the cost per lead is £3.35. So that's around about $4.50. So it doesn't have to be a huge cost to get speaking to a lot of local business owners. You just need the right topic, the right landing page that's going to filter them. And then obviously practicing like this on a regular basis is going to help as well. Meta is the way to go. I can tell you, you'll pay 4 times as much on LinkedIn. And to tell you the truth, it's much more difficult to filter in who you need. So what do you offer? This is the second objection, is like, what should I sell in my webinar? Like, how, you know, I'm not good at pitching. I'm not good at sales. I'm certainly not. But what do you actually offer as an MSP? You can't go and just tell them all about your managed IT services contract and it's a 36-month agreement. Please sign here in the dotted line at the end of the webinar. How do you continue the conversation? Well, there's a few ways you can do it. And I take this terminology, the Trojan horse, from a peer of mine, Paul Lloyd, who talked about this recently in an event I ran with him, where he's very much a sales expert here in the UK. But you go in with a small offer, just something small that's your foot in the door that allows you to just open that conversation and open that door a little bit further. So the examples that I've got here, they're fairly obvious. A cyber gap analysis. I love this one because it leads to work. A lot of businesses, if they have had an incident in the past, they're maybe quite comfortable with their current provider. You can say in the webinar, yeah, you might be comfortable with your current provider, but just having that external set of eyes just to see where there's potential gaps, then you can basically point the finger where there's gaps. It's maybe a 4-hour session, and it's a series of questions that you're asking either the internal IT or the other MSP if they're at the table, and just figuring out where there's actual gaps in the business. This is going to lead to more work. This is going to lead to project work. The next one is the Copilot one. It's the obvious one for MSPs because the Copilot thing, all the MSPs I know, they resell M365 licenses. So Copilot's just an obvious one. An AI maturity assessment, actually just looking at the business, seeing how mature, asking a set of questions around where they are with their AI. You know, are they even licensed for Copilot? Have they got an AI policy in place? Have they got things like sensitivity labels turned on so that when they save a file, it's tagged the right way in Azure so that any of that, you know, the AI responses, the prompt responses that come back, they're properly tagged for the user base that can see it. So they're not using like, you know, confidential information in their prompt responses and copying and pasting. All of that good stuff. And then there's the obvious ones, the old school ones, network audit, you know, a tool like Ovic or what, you know, your network tool of choice. But going in there and seeing how you can speed up the network and the IT, that's the old school stuff. But these are your Trojan horses. So the question is, what is yours? What's your small offer? Ideally a paid piece of work, $99 to $1,000, that allows you to get your foot in the door. It hits on a pain point that prospect has, and it relates back to your topic. Then finally, this is the fear of presenting. Now, some of you might be extremely confident when it comes to presenting. I certainly wasn't. I'm still not. I didn't want to, I've actually got a cold just now. That's why I'm wearing this. But this is very common, the fear of presenting, actually clicking the button. And even though I'm literally just speaking to my laptop right now, like there's a piece of plastic here and a bit of metal and a piece of glass in that camera. There's emotions though. You know, I'm nervous. They've got 21 people in the room right now. Some of them are AI note takers. I don't know what AI is going to do on my soul when I die, but the fear is real for a lot of us. And, you know, I get it. Some of us are introverts. A lot of us are introverts, you know, and that's why we're in technology. Tell you a story about Steve here. Steve, he's got a company down in Wiley, Texas, TechCom Computers. Did a bit of work for him. We were doing Google. I was doing the SEO, getting his website up there in the search. And I went to him and said, Steve, listen, we should really do a webinar. It's going to push the needle. And this was before kind of like I knew the power of them. And he's like, he was extremely reluctant. And he told me that he just joined the Chamber of Commerce and he had to stand up in front of everyone and He was really nervous about doing that. It was literally just 15 seconds to introduce his business, but he was trembling and he had the piece of paper just to tell people about his business. So I said, Steve, it doesn't have to be like this for a webinar. It can be completely different. Let's flip the script. Let's take you in as the guest expert. So the way we worked it is, opposed to him just running the whole thing, we just took him in as the expert. I took him in and I facilitated it. So I did a little spiel at the start, and then we took him in as the expert. And how we flipped this was that he no longer had to present in the webinar. He was just telling a story in the webinar, a story about one of his clients. It was a pharmaceutical client, and they had a failure on their local server and all this patient data got lost. So he basically told the story about how he recovered it. And there was high emotions within that. But at the end of the story, end of the presentation, end of the webinar, when it was just me and him in the Teams room, he had a really big smile on his face because he knew that he achieved something by doing this. He'd managed to reach out to all these business owners, and he managed to tell this story. And he was so elated after it. And that's the feeling you can get once you've done one of these for the first time, is that once you get over that initial fear and hurdle, it just becomes so much easier. So flipping the script like this and just telling a story, go back to the REAP formula, that second E, or was it the third E? Entertain. The oldest form of human communication known to man is just telling a story. And it's one of the best ways that you can actually sell your IT services and what it is that you do and what you lead with. Is just being able to tell a story in the webinar. So not having like a really fancy slide deck, just having a really good story about what's happened to you or one of your clients. So that's how to get over these, okay? I'll go into my offer now. I'm not gonna go into this for long. 2026, I'm filling up January calendars just now. And what I'll do for you is I will fully manage one of these webinars for you. I've learned a lot of things over the last 24 months of doing this. There's a lot of failures here. Things like running the ad correctly, making sure your landing page is correct, that's got the right filters on it, so you're not getting the old folks, Brett, that are registering onto your webinar, making sure all of these things are in place. So I will run these, and I'm happy to do it. You can check out the domain virtuallyirresistible.com, and it's basically just a call with myself. It goes to my Calendly, that domain, and where we can have a discussion on if you're a right fit and what your topic might be. And then obviously we can go to price and stuff like that, what your budget would be for ads. I can give you some ideas on ad costs and all of that stuff. So that's that was kind of like all I was wanting to say in regards to the offer. I'm not like going to hit on it. What I will say though, in regards to these webinars, and this goes back to a story when I was doing MSP sales. Actually, before that was when I was in the technical role. I realized I was like a hot shot, or I thought I was a hot shot. I was a senior systems engineer for a company here in Aberdeen called Dynamic Edge at the time. And I was going down to London. I was doing like big projects down in London. And I came back and I felt really good about doing these big technical projects. But there was something that was like missing from it. And I kind of looked around the room in the office. I was looking at the service delivery manager at the time. He was an older guy, 10 years older than me. And I realized that if I wanted to go far in the company or just even like my own business at one point, I was going to have to change things. I was going to have to walk away from that technical role. It was really difficult for me to do that. Like I had to come out of the server room, look away from the event viewer log and put on a suit jacket. And then it was BNI that I started doing at the time. But what I realized is that if you're wanting to change your business and change the trajectory of where you're going with your business and just your life in general, is that you actually really need to change something inside yourself. So there may be a reluctance for things like webinars and pulling one of these things off, but you probably know deep down that if you are wanting to change things for the new year, going into the new year, then you are going to have to kind of step out of that comfort zone and do something like this. So that's it, folks. I will apologize and say the chat's not working, but we can take this conversation further in the school group. Let me bring the school group up on the screen just in case you're not on it yet. I'll bring it up here because I had questions and answers section. So yeah, we've got the school group here. So, I mean, yeah, so you can, well, I'll create a thread in the school group, and then if you've got any questions there, you can get to the school group. It's free of charge to get into. The URL is school.com/MSP. I'm happy to answer any questions in regards to this. Anyway, I think that's it. That was like the quickest one yet, 23 minutes. It's because we didn't have the Q&A. So yeah, if you want to book time in my diary, Virtually Irresistible is actually the title of a new book that I got coming out. And then yeah, we can get some webinars in the date for 2026 because I'm going to be finishing up soon. So put some time in the diary. And oh, we do have, wait, do we have messages? Oh, I've got Peter. Peter's able to say thanks. But yeah, Paris, was it Paris that was here earlier? He was saying that he couldn't get the chat working. So maybe you have to be like registered in. Yeah, the chat's working. I think what it is you actually have to like log in to Teams maybe for it to work. I'm not sure. But yeah, if you've got access to the chat, you can certainly put any questions that you've got in there. I can unmute Neil if you want. Let me bring up here. This is like the feature of Teams webinars. It's actually by design that it's muted, because like if you run like a lot of these, you don't want everyone talking. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, as I say, I'm happy to take any questions in the chat. I will hang around for the next few minutes.